Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to your class again in NatSci 22 or Agricultural Biology. So last time we talked about macromolecules, and I hope you have watched the video posted, and please don't forget to comment or ask questions. So for this video, we're going to talk about the basic structure of a cell. So I know this is very common, and it's since this is agricultural biology, and the first basic knowledge for agriculture sciences. So we're gonna have a review about the cell structures and its different functions, which is just very common to us. So let me show you a video on an interactive video on this. So please watch.
Cells are the smallest living units of an organism. All cells have three things in common, no matter what type of cell they are. All cells have a cell membrane, which separates the inside of the cell from its environment, cytoplasm, which is a jelly-like fluid, and DNA, which is the cell's genetic material. There are two broad categories of cells. The first category is eukaryotic cells. They have organelles, which include the nucleus and other special parts. Eukaryotic cells are more advanced, complex cells, such as those found in plants and animals. The second category is prokaryotic cells. They don't have a nucleus or membrane-enclosed organelles. They do have genetic material, but it's not contained within a nucleus. Prokaryotic cells are always one-celled or unicellular organisms, such as bacteria. So, what are organelles? Organelle means little organ. Organelles are the specialized parts of a cell that have unique jobs to perform. Let's start with the nucleus, the control center of the cell. The nucleus contains DNA, or genetic material. DNA dictates what the cell is going to do and how it's going to do it. Chromatin is the tangled, spread-out form of DNA found inside the nuclear membrane. When a cell is ready to divide, DNA condenses into structures known as chromosomes. The nucleus also contains a nucleolus, which is a structure where ribosomes are made. After ribosomes leave the nucleus, they will have the important job of synthesizing or making proteins. Outside the nucleus, the ribosomes and the rest of the organelles float around in cytoplasm, which is the jelly-like substance. Ribosomes may wander freely within the cytoplasm or attach to the endoplasmic reticulum, sometimes abbreviated as ER. There are two types of ER. Rough ER has ribosomes attached to it, and smooth ER doesn't have ribosomes attached to it. The endoplasmic reticulum is a membrane-enclosed passageway for transporting materials, such as the proteins synthesized by ribosomes. Proteins and other materials emerge from the endoplasmic reticulum in small vesicles, where the Golgi apparatus, sometimes called the Golgi body, receives them. As proteins move through the Golgi body, they're customized into forms that the cell can use. The Golgi body does this by folding the proteins into usable shapes, or adding other materials onto them, such as lipids or carbohydrates. Vacuoles are sac-like structures that store different materials. Here, in this plant cell, the central vacuole stores water. Going back to the animal cell, you will see an organelle called a lysosome. Lysosomes are the garbage collectors that take in damaged or worn out cell parts. They are filled with enzymes that break down this cellular debris. The mitochondrion is an organelle that is the powerhouse for both animal and plant cells. During a process called cellular respiration, the mitochondria make ATP molecules that provide the energy for all of the cell's activities. Cells that need more energy have more mitochondria. Meanwhile, the cell maintains its shape through a cytoskeleton. The cytoskeleton includes the thread-like microfilaments, which are made of protein, and microtubules, which are thin, hollow tubes. Some organisms, such as plants, that are photoautotrophic, meaning they capture sunlight for energy, have cells with an organelle called a chloroplast. The chloroplast is where photosynthesis happens. It's green because it has a green pigment called chlorophyll. Plant cells also have a cell wall outside of their cell membranes that shape, support, and protect the plant cell. Animal cells never have a cell wall. There are many other unique structures that only some cells have. Here are just a few. In humans, for example, the respiratory tract is lined with cells that have cilia. These are microscopic hair-like projections that can move in waves. This feature helps trap inhaled particles in the air and expels them when you cough. Another unique feature in some cells is flagella. Some bacteria have flagella. A flagellum is like a little tail that can help a cell move or propel itself. The only human cell that has a flagellum is a sperm cell. In summary, remember, eukaryotic cells are plant and animal cells with a nucleus and membrane-enclosed organelles, while prokaryotic cells are unicellular organisms without these things. All cells have a cell membrane, cytoplasm, and genetic material. And even though only plant cells have chloroplasts, both plant and animal cells have mitochondria.
Okay, that was really a very nice video presentation and animation, and that's one of my favorite video available. And there's a lot actually, so you can explore yourself in YouTube's and other online sources. So, but there are really much to learn about, no? And I have even here 93 slides just to talk about the basic structure of a cell. So this specific structure has been mentioned in detail and also in animation on the videos that we just have seen. So, and hopefully you can just easily remember them, no? Like the most important classification of the cell structure is having a nucleus. That's why we have two types of organism, the eukaryotes and the prokaryotes. So those eukaryotes have the nucleus or the nuclear membrane, while the prokaryotes are single-celled animals. We don't have nuclear membrane. So other than this are the different parts of the cell. Once again, the nucleus, the centriole, the microfilament, the ribosomes, the lysosome, the Golgi apparatus, the rough ER, and the smooth ER, and the mitochondrion. And we all know that different organisms, different cell structure between animals and plants. So let's have a review facts about living things once again. So as had been mentioned also earlier, the main characteristic of an organism, the cells, are the basic unit of life. And so all organisms are made up of cells, and we require energy as food and reproduce in species. And they maintain homeostasis and is very organized, capable of responding to the environment for growth and development and exchange of what materials with surroundings like water, waste, and gases. So there are actually levels of organization. The atom, or for non-living levels, the atom is which is the element, and the molecule, which is compounds like carbohydrates and proteins, and organelles like the nucleus, in the ER and Golgi, and so on. So again, we have living levels like the cell, weight in makeup, which is the basic unit of all organisms, and tissues, which are cells working together, and organs like in animals or humans, heart, brain, and stomach, and organ systems for respiratory and circulatory, and organism. So in as a whole organism. So another level of organization, we have population, one species in an area, so like a human population, and then community or several population in an area. So like the community of we have an ecosystem, it's a forest or prairie ecosystem, the biomes like tundra and tropical rainforest, and the biosphere, all living and non-living things on Earth. So we call them biosphere. It's the highest classification level of organization. And we all even have, the Earth belong in the Milky Way, and so on. History of cells and the cell theory. So we would never learn about advancement of the cell without this man who first to view cells in 1665 in the name of Robert Hooke. I know you're very familiar with him. He used a microscope to examine a thin slice of cork from a dead plant cell walls. Then what he saw looked like small boxes, as shown on the figure here. And using this very simple microscope, so Hooke is responsible for naming the cells. So he gave the name cells, and Hooke called them cells because they look like the small rooms that monks live in cells, no? Cool, that's very interesting. And in 1673, Leeuwenhoek, a Dutch microscope maker, was first to view organism in reality, no, or living things. And Leeuwenhoek used a simple handheld microscope to view pond water and scrapings from teeth. So this is actually the kind of Leeuwenhoek microscope. So that's really very simple, and this is what he had seen. So the beginning of the cell theory was in 1838 by a German botanist named Matthias Schleden. He concluded that plants were made of cells, and Schleden is the co-founder of the cell theory. In 1839, a German zoologist named Tudor Schwann concluded that all animals were made of cells, and Schwann also co-founded the cell theory. And in 1855, a German medical doctor named Rudolf Virchow observed under the microscope cells that are dividing. He reasoned that all cells come from other pre-existing cells by cell division. And all living things, according to cell theory, are made up of cells, and cells are the basic unit of structure and function of an organism, or the basic unit of life, and cells come from the reproduction of existing cells or cell division. So that is what we call as the cell theory. So discoveries since the cell theory also follows. So we call them the endosymbiotic theory in 1970 by an American biologist, Lynn Margulis. Schiffer provided evidence that some organelles within cells were one at a time free living cells themselves. And supporting the evidence include organelles with their own DNA and chloroplast and mitochondria. And so this figure will also show you the different discoveries have that have been done, no? As the time goes by, so they have come to take a look of the DNA, the plasma membrane, and then improvements of the structure of the plasma membrane, and then the nuclear envelope and endoplasmic reticulum in the nucleus. And they also have able to explain the division of the cells using the mitochondrion, no? And in the ancestral photosynthetic eukaryote. So speaking of cell size and types, the cells which are the basic units of organism can only be observed under a microscope and not or never in a naked eye. So there are three basic types of cells, which include the animal cell, the plant cell, and the bacterial cell. And we've known on the video that we just watched earlier on their differences based on structure. So although all living things are made up of cells, organism may be unicellular or multicellular, which is, of course, from the word uni, it is only composed of one cell, and multi or multi meaning composed of many cells that may organize into tissues, as has been mentioned earlier. So the cell size actually, typical cells range from 5 to 50 micrometers or microns in diameter. So starting from the atom, it's 0.1 nanometer going to the cell size becomes bigger as it's become amino acids, proteins, viruses, and chloroplasts. These are shown, which can only be seen in an electron microscope, like most bacteria, plant and animal cells, and egg human cells, no? From 0.1 nanometer to 100 micron. And 1 millimeter, like the frog egg, and 1 centimeter, and like for the ant, and so on for the mouse, human, and blue whale. So as you can see, the biggest, these are seen under the human eye. And although we can see it from 100 nanometer to 1 millimeter in a light microscope as well. So as you can see here, the blue whales have the biggest cell size, and that's why, because they are the biggest mammals in the world. So which cell type is larger? So plant cell or animal cell or bacteria? No? So as we can see here on the ranges, no? So the animal, it depends on the, of course, the animal cells is big, much more bigger than the rest. And how big is a micron? No, when we see when we look at in the ruler. So 1 centimeter is equivalent to 10,000 microns. So 1 inches is equivalent to 25,000 microns. So let's talk about multicellular organisms. So these are cells in multicellular organisms, often specialized, take on different shapes and functions. So like the animals or the human beings. So the multicells have actually formed into blood, kidney, bone, skin, nervous system, the liver, the pancreas, muscles, heart, and so on. So cell specialization in a multicellular organism becomes specialized by turning different genes on and off, and this is known as differentiation. So the specialized animal cells includes the muscle cells, the red blood cells, and the cheek cells. Another one is we have guard cells, pollen in plants, and xylem cells, and these are all in specialized plant cells. So organization levels of life from atom to organisms, we have here non-living levels that includes atoms, molecules, and organelles. So for the living levels, we have cells as the starting point and tissues, which are similar cells working together, and organs with different tissues working together, and organ systems with different organs working together, and organism. So these simple or complex cells. So prokaryotes are the first cells, the cells that lack a nucleus or membrane bound organelles include bacteria. This simplest type of cell are single and has circular chromosome. Prokaryotes are in the nuclear region or center contains the DNA, as shown on the figure, and surrounded by cell membrane and cell wall known as the peptidoglycan, and contain ribosomes without membrane in their cytoplasm to make proteins. While the eukaryotes have a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles, and this includes proteins, fungi, plants, and animals, and more complex types of cell. So they contain three basic cell structures: the nucleus, the cell membrane, and cytoplasm with organelles. There are two main types of eukaryotic cells. We have plant cell and animal cell. So, and these are grouped as an organelles. So these are very small and they're microscopic and perform various functions for cell and found in the cytoplasm, and may or may not be membrane bound. So these are the specific types of the animal cell organelles. As you can see, it's almost the same except that it usually has the cell membrane, the mitochondrion, the ERs, the ribosome, the centrioles, and Golgi apparatus, and the rough ER, and the nuclear envelope. So you cannot see a chloroplast here, or the green pigments, which are only found in plant cells, as well as vacuoles. It's not found in animal cells. So also centrioles are only found in animals and not so much on plants. So plants have the plasma membrane, but they have the peroxisome, the Golgi apparatus as well. They have the chloroplast, which are not found on animal cells, mitochondria, cytoplasm, the rough ER, nucleus, and nuclear envelope, and the cell walls, so which are also absent in animal cell. So once again, animal cells don't have the chloroplast, the cell wall, and the nuclear membrane. So the cellular plasma membrane is composed of a double layer of phospholipids and proteins that surrounds outside of all the cells. It controls whatever enters or leaves the cell. So it's a living layer. So this is a particular figure of the cell or plasma membrane, composed of carbohydrates, proteins, and lipid bilayer. So what are phospholipids? So these are heads containing glycerol and phosphate, and hydrophilic, which attract water. No? And tails are made of fatty acids and are hydrophobic, which repel water, and make up a bilayer where tails point inward toward each other and can move laterally to allow small molecules such as oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water to enter. So the phospholipids is one of the macromolecules that we have discussed on the last video. So the cell membrane is fluid actually, and it's hydrophilic region of the protein composing this, and the hydrophobic region of protein, and phospholipid bilayer. So molecules in the cell membranes are constantly moving and changing between this membrane. So the cell membrane proteins help move large molecules or aid in the cell recognition. Peripheral proteins are attached on the surface, inner and outer, and integral proteins are embedded completely through the membrane. So glycoproteins have carbohydrate tails to act as markers for cell recognition. So it's the glycoprotein that will recognize the cell. So cell membrane in plants lies immediately against the cell wall in plant cells, which pushes out against the cell wall to maintain the shape. So the main function of the cell membrane is for the structure and shape. So the cell wall is a non-living part found in plants, in also fungi and bacteria, which is made of cellulose and made up of peptidoglycan in bacteria, but cellulose in plants, and chitin in fungi. So the different cell wall have different components in different types of organisms. So the cell wall supports and protects cell and is found outside of the cell membrane. So the cytoplasm of a cell inside the cell wall is a jelly-like substance enclosed by cell membrane and provides a medium for chemical reactions to take place. So it's where actually the photosynthesis and the respiration takes place. So it also contains organelles to carry out specific jobs and found in all cells. So all cells have, whether animal cells or plant cells, have cytoplasm. So the nucleus is the control organelle. It controls the normal activities of the cell and contains the DNA and chromosomes bounded by a nuclear envelope or membrane with pores and usually the largest organelle found in the cell. So this is the nucleus and it has fixed number of chromosomes that carry genes, and we all know that genes control the cell characteristic. So the nuclear envelope is a double membrane surrounding nucleus, also called nuclear membrane, and contains nuclear pores for material to enter and leave the nucleus, which is connected to the endoplasmic reticulum. So inside the nucleus is the genetic material deoxynucleic acid. So it, of course, have chromatin and chromosomes, which spread out and appears as chromatin in non-dividing cells, while DNA is condensed and wrapped around proteins, forming chromosomes in dividing cells. So we all know that DNA is the hereditary material of the cell. As shown, this makes the genes that makes up the DNA molecule code for different proteins. So the nucleolus inside the nucleus may have 1 to 3 nuclei, and this appears when cell divides and makes ribosomes that make proteins. The cytoskeleton helps cell maintain cell shape and help move organelles around and made up of proteins, and microfilaments are thread-like and made up of actin. Microtubules are tube-like of made of tubulins. So cytoskeleton mostly are found in humans and animal cells. So these are the microtubules and microfilaments found in cytoskeleton. The centrioles are also found in animal cells, only in animal cells. So this is another difference between plant cell and animal cells, and paired structure near nucleus and made up of bundles of microtubules. Appear during cell division, forming mitotic spindle and help to pull chromosome pairs apart to opposite ends of the cell. So this is a figure showing centrioles and mitotic spindle made of microtubules or tubulin. So this is during mitotic division. So the mitochondria, or in singular mitochondrion, is the powerhouse of the cell and generates cellular energy, or the ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And more active cells like muscle cells have more mitochondria. Both plants and animal cells have mitochondria and the site of cellular respiration, burning glucose. So the mitochondria, shown in the photo, is surrounded by a double membrane. And it has its own DNA folded in inner membrane called cristae and increases surface area for more chemical reactions. So it's actually where the respiration takes place. It's the interior cold is known as matrix. So one interesting fact about mitochondria is come from the cytoplasm in the egg cell during fertilization. Therefore, you inherit your mitochondria from your mother. The cell powerhouse or the mitochondrion is a rod shape in form here. So they are the power plant of the cell. Therefore, they burn glucose to release ATP or the energy. So how about the endoplasmic reticulum? These are network of hollow membrane tubules connects the to nuclear envelope and cell membrane and the functions in synthesis of cell products and for transport. So as you can see, we have two types, the rough and the ER. Rough and smooth ER, I mean. So the rough ER has ribosomes on its surface, which makes membrane proteins and proteins for export out of the cell. While the rough ER again are made up of ribosomes on the ER surface, and they are threaded into the interior of the rough ER to be modified and transported. While the small ER don't have the ribosomes on its surface and attached to the ends of the rough ER to make cells products that are used inside the cell. So their function is making membrane lipids or steroids and regulate calcium muscle cells and destroys toxic substances in liver. The endomembrane system includes nuclear membrane connected to the ER connected to the cell membrane for transport. So the ribosomes are the one that makes proteins and RNA. Protein, these are known as the protein factories for cell, and they join amino acids to make proteins called protein synthesis. The ribosomes can be attached to rough ER or be free and attached in the cytoplasm. The Golgi bodies, another cell parts, stacks of flattened stacks, and have shipping side or transphase and receiving side or the cis phase. And they receive proteins made by the endoplasmic reticulum and transport vesicles with modified proteins pinch off the ends. This one. So the Golgi bodies look like a stack of pancakes actually, as shown on the figure, and they modify, stored, and package molecules from ER for storage or transport out of the cell. So this is the Golgi, or the stack that looks like stack of pancakes. So this is supposed to be Golgi animation, but we have seen this before on the first video. So in this, materials are transported from ER to Golgi to the cell membranes by vesicles. So lysosomes contain digestive enzymes. So they break down food, bacteria, and worn out cell parts for cells and program for cell death or autolysis. So after they break down food, they also die. No? So they contain digestive enzymes. And lyse means break open and release enzymes to break down and recycle the different cell parts. So in lysosome digestion, cells takes in food by phagocytosis, and lysosome digest the food and get rid of the waste. The cilia and flagella, which are found, are very specialized structures from other organisms, are made of protein tubes called microtubules and arranged in 9 or +2 arrangement and functions in moving cells, in moving fluids, or in small particles across the cell surface. So cilia are shorter and more numerous on cells, while flagella are longer, and fewer, usually 1 to 3 on cells. So these are the cilia and the flagella. So you can see here under the microscope the photo of a cell movement with cilia and flagella. So cilia moving away dust particles from the lungs in the respiratory system of a human person. And this is another part, vacuole, which is a fluid-filled sacs for storage. And this is small or absent in animal cells. And plant cells have a large central vacuole, but bacterial cell as well has no vacuole. So that's the only difference. I mean, one of the difference between plant cells and bacterial cells, and also animal cell. So in plants, they store cell sap, includes storage of sugar, proteins, minerals, lipids, waste, salts, water, and enzymes. So contractile vacuole is found in unicellular protists like Paramecia, and they regulate water intake by pumping out excess we call that homeostasis, and keeps the cell from lysing or bursting. So that's why they are contractile vacuole animate. This one is a contractile vacuole animation. So you can see this one when you open this one on a PowerPoint presentation. So chloroplast is found in producers organism containing chlorophyll, and definitely in plants. So they use energy from sunlight to make own food glucose. Energy from sun stored in the chemical bonds of sugar. So they are surrounded by double membrane. The outer membrane is smooth and the inner surface membrane modified into sacs known as thylakoids. And the thylakoid sacs are called grana or granum, and they are interconnected, and there is stroma here, which are gel-like materials surrounding the thylakoids. So each of these parts have its own function. Chloroplast contains its own DNA and contains enzymes and pigments, and mainly for photosynthesis. And they are not found in both animal and bacterial cells. And only plants can do the photosynthesis or the food making process. So are the cells in an elephant bigger, smaller, or about the same size as those in a mouse? And we have learned that, of course, the factors that affecting cell size are the surface area, the plasma membrane surface, is determined by multiplying the length times or width, or the length times width. So the volume of a cell is determined by multiplying the length times width differs width times height, length times width times height, and therefore the volume increases faster than that surface area. So the cell size when the surface area is no longer great enough to get rid of all the waste and to get enough food and water, then the cell must divide, and therefore the cells of an organism are closed in size. So the answer actually is that they are the same size, but the elephant has many, many more cells than a mouse. So that's all for this video presentation. And I hope you have learned a lot, because there's really so much to learn about the different structures and functions of the cells. And I hope to see you on the next video. And if you have questions, you just comment on the video that will be posted soon. So thank you very much for watching this video, and have a nice day.